All right, so have you ever wondered what it's like to be in one of those Google coding interviews?
Oh, yeah.
The ones that like everyone talks about?
Yeah, the legendary ones.
Well, we found this awesome video
Yeah.
from Google's YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
It's called Life at Google,
Okay.
and it's a mock interview,
Wow.
and it's pretty intense.
I bet.
We're going to get to see how a candidate tackles a tricky coding challenge,
Sounds fun.
and we're going to learn some neat coding tricks along the way.
Nice.
So in this video, we've got Becky and Edgar,
Okay.
both Google software engineers.
Uh-huh.
Becky's the interviewer, and she throws Edgar this classic coding problem.
Jay?
Imagine you have a bunch of numbers,
Right.
and you need to find if any two of them add up to a specific target sum.
Oh, that's a classic one.
So it seems simple enough for...
Yeah, it seems simple, but it's really interesting because it tests a lot of things at once.
Right.
It tests your problem-solving skills.
Yeah.
It tests your understanding of, like, efficiency and algorithms.
Mm.
And it tests your actual coding skills.
Yeah, so it's like a
All into one.
coding interview trifecta.
Yeah, exactly.
So Edgar jumps in, and he's like, okay, well, what if we just compare
Right.
every possible pair of numbers using nested loops,
Yeah.
like a brute force method?
Uh-huh.
And Becky's like, yeah, that would work,
Mm-hmm.
but it could be a lot more efficient.
Yeah, that's the thing about that approach.
Right.
It'll work, but it might take a really long time,
Yeah.
especially if you have a ton of numbers.
Right.
And that's because it has what's called quadratic time complexity.
Quadratic time complexity.
Yeah. Have you heard of that before?
I've heard of it, but like,
Yeah, it's kind of
I don't really know what it means.
it's a fancy term, but basically it means that the time it takes to run the code
Right.
grows exponentially as the number of numbers increases.
Oh.
So like if you have a small list of numbers, it'll be pretty fast.
Yeah.
But if you have like millions of numbers,
Wow.
it could take like,
Forever.
yeah, forever.
Like trying to find a needle in a haystack the size of a planet.
Yeah, exactly. It's just not practical for like large data sets.
So what does he do?
Well, Becky, being a super helpful interviewer, she gives Edgar a little hint.
Okay.
She tells him that the list of numbers is actually sorted,
Oh,
which is a big clue.
interesting.
And Edgar's eyes light up.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, well, in that case, we can use a binary search
Oh.
to find the complement of each number.
Pretty clever.
Yeah, it is.
So what's binary search and why is that so much better?
So binary search is a way of searching through a sorted list,
Okay.
much faster than just checking each number one by one.
Right.
It's kind of like if you're looking for a word in a dictionary.
Mm-hmm.
You don't start at the beginning and flip through every single page.
Right.
You open it up to the middle and see if the word you're looking for is before or after that.
Right. Yeah.
And then you keep narrowing it down
Uh-huh.
until you find the word.
Oh, that's so smart.
Yeah, it's super efficient.
So instead of looking at every single number,
Right.
you can just like keep cutting the list in half.
Exactly. And that gives you what's called logarithmic time complexity.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break this down for me.
Yeah, no problem.
Logarithmic time complexity.
So it's another fancy term,
Right.
but basically it means that the time it takes to run the code
Uh-huh.
grows much more slowly as the number of numbers increases.
Right.
So it's way faster than quadratic time complexity.
So much faster than quadratic time complexity.
Especially when you have a lot of data.
Wow, Edgar's like a coding rock star.
He's even well.
He's got this.
Yeah.
But then Becky throws a curveball.
Yeah, these interviewers, they like to keep you on your toes.
Right.
She says, what if we can't guarantee that the numbers are sorted?
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, that changes things.
Right, because now he can't use that binary search trick.
Exactly.
So now Edgar's really got to think on his feet.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting.
Right.
It's not just about knowing how to code.
Hmm.
It's about being able to adapt
Right.
to new information and finding the best solution, even when the rules change.
So like in the real world,
Yeah, exactly. Like in
Mhm.
real world coding, things are always changing.
the requirements are changing.
You have to be able to think on your feet.
Got to be flexible.
Exactly.
So what happens next? Does Edgar like totally freeze up?
No, he doesn't freeze up. He takes a moment to think.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with a super clever solution.
Okay.
He suggests using a hash set.
A hash set.
Have you ever used a hash set before?
I have, but like remind me.
Okay, so a hash set is a special kind of data structure
Right.
that lets you store and retrieve information really quickly.
Uh-huh.
It's like a super efficient lookup table.
Got it.
So Edgar's idea is to use the hash set to store the complements of the numbers
Okay.
as he goes through the list.
Right.
And that way he can check for matches in linear time.
Okay, hold on. Linear time.
Yeah.
What's that?
So linear time basically means that the time it takes to run the code grows proportionally to the number of numbers.
Okay.
So it's even faster than logarithmic time complexity.
Oh, wow.
And it also only uses a small amount of memory.
So it's fast and efficient.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds.
I'm so impressed by Edgar.
Yeah, he's doing really well.
Like, I feel like I'm learning so much just by watching this mock interview.
Yeah, me too. It's like a masterclass in problem solving
Right.
and coding fundamentals.
Becky seems pretty impressed too, but she's got one final challenge
Oh boy.
up her sleeve.
I wonder what it could be.
She's like, okay, Edgar, what if the data set is so huge
Right.
it can't even fit in the computer's memory?
Whoa. That's a tough one.
Right? That's like next level.
Yeah, that's a real world problem.
Yeah.
You encounter that a lot in software development,
Like when you have massive amounts of data.
like big data. Yeah.
So how does he handle that?
Well, you'll have to wait till after the break to find out.
Oh, come on.
Stay tuned
We'll be right back.
to see how Edgar tackles this massive data challenge.
And we'll uncover even more insights into what it takes to ace a Google coding interview.
Right, because it's not just about the code.
It's about the whole package.
The problem solving, the communication, the
Yeah.
adaptability.
So stick around.
Like you can't just cram all that data into your computer's memory at once.
Right. It's like trying to fit an elephant into a Mini Cooper.
Exactly. You need a different approach.
So what does Edgar do?
Well, he really thinks this one through,
Uh-huh.
and he comes up with a pretty cool solution.
Okay. I'm all ears.
He suggests breaking the data down into smaller chunks
Oh, okay.
that can fit in memory,
Right.
process each chunk separately,
Okay.
and then merge the results at the end.
Oh, that's pretty clever.
Yeah, it's a common strategy for dealing with big data.
It's like divide and conquer.
Exactly.
Break it down into manageable pieces.
Yeah, and you can even use parallel processing to speed things up.
Oh, wow. So like have multiple computers working on different chunks at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. It's called distributed processing.
Distributed processing. It's a big deal in the world of big data.
So Edgar's not just a coding rock star.
Right.
He's like a big data superhero.
He's got the whole package.
Yeah, it's clear that he's killing it in this interview,
Mm-hmm.
but the coding challenge is just part of the story.
Right.
It's the way he tackles the problem.
Exactly.
That's really impressive.
It's about the process.
Yeah.
Not just the answer.
So after Edgar wraps up his solution,
Mm-hmm.
Becky gives him some really valuable feedback.
Okay, what kind of feedback?
Well, she emphasizes the importance of asking clarifying questions
Oh, yeah, that's so important.
before you even start coding
Right, because you need to make sure,
to understand the problem.
yeah, you understand the problem fully.
Like, what are the inputs? What are the outputs? What are the constraints?
Exactly. It shows that you're paying attention to detail
Yeah.
and that you're not just jumping into things without thinking.
It's like measure twice, cut once.
Exactly.
She also highlights how Edgar talked through his thought process as he went along. Oh, yeah, that's another good one.
Like explaining his reasoning to Becky?
It's all about transparency,
Right.
letting the interviewer see how your brain works.
Yeah.
It's just as valuable as the final code you write.
Because they want to know
Yeah,
how you think,
exactly.
not just what you know.
Right, it's about problem solving, not just memorization.
And Edgar also did a great job of discussing different approaches
Oh, yeah, like weighing the pros and cons
Yeah.
of each option.
and explaining the trade-offs.
Exactly. It shows that he's really thinking critically
Uh-huh.
about the best way to solve the problem.
It's like he's got a toolbox of techniques,
Yeah,
and he knows which tool to use for the job.
exactly.
And even when he came up with his hash set solution,
Mm-hmm.
he didn't just stop there.
Right.
He tested it thoroughly.
Right.
He made sure it would work even with weird edge cases like duplicate numbers.
Oh, yeah, those edge cases can get you.
Right, they're like little landmines.
Exactly. You gotta be careful.
So it's clear from this mock interview
Uh-huh.
that coding interviews aren't just about writing code.
Right.
They're about showcasing your problem-solving skills,
Mm-hmm.
your ability to adapt,
Yeah,
and your communication prowess.
exactly. It's the whole package.
So for anyone listening who's getting ready for a coding interview, what's the biggest takeaway here?
I would say the biggest takeaway is to focus on the process.
The process.
Yeah.
Not just the answer.
Exactly. Don't just try to memorize algorithms and data structures.
Right.
Practice explaining your thought process out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Think about different ways to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Be prepared to discuss the trade-offs of each approach.
And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
It shows that you're engaged
Mm-hmm.
and that you're thinking critically.
Exactly. Remember, the interviewer's not trying to trick you.
Right.
They're trying to see how you think.
So relax.
Yeah.
Be yourself
Hmm.
and show them what you're capable of.
And most importantly, have fun. Enjoy the challenge.
Coding can be fun.
It is fun.
It's like solving puzzles.
Exactly. And you get to create things,
Yeah.
which is awesome.
So embrace the challenge.
Mhm.
Learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
And never stop exploring new ways to solve problems.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday it'll be your coding interview
Oh, yeah.
that we're breaking down on the deep dive.
That would be so cool.
That'd be awesome.
So to wrap things up, let's distill this down to some actionable advice
Okay.
for our listeners.
I'm ready.
If you're prepping for a coding interview, don't just focus on memorizing algorithms and data structures.
Right.
Practice explaining your thought process out loud.
Mm-hmm.
Think about different ways to solve a problem
Yeah.
and be prepared to discuss the trade-offs of each approach.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions.
Right.
It shows that you're engaged and that you're thinking critically about the problem.
And remember, the interviewer isn't trying to trick you. They're trying to see how you think. Exactly.
So relax, be yourself,
Yeah.
and show them what you're capable of.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Have fun.
Coding can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
It is.
Embrace the challenge, learn from your mistakes, and never stop exploring new ways to solve problems.
It's all about the journey.
Exactly.
Who knows? Maybe someday it'll be your coding interview that we're breaking down on the deep dive.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
That's a great point. And for all of our listeners out there, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
How would you have tackled this coding challenge?
What are your go-to strategies for acing coding interviews?
Share your thoughts in the comments.
Yeah, we might even feature some of your insights in a future deep dive.
So until next time, keep coding and keep learning.
Happy coding, everyone. And you know, it's interesting because testing is often seen as like an afterthought.
Right. Like, oh yeah, I'll just test it at the end.
Yeah, but it should really be like an integral part of the whole development process. Yeah, it's like building a house. You wouldn't wait till the very end to see if the roof leaks.
Exactly. You got to test each component as you go.
So how do we apply this to our code?
Well, first off, don't just test with like the obvious cases.
Right.
Think about those edge cases, those weird scenarios that could potentially break your code.
Like what if someone enters a negative number when they're supposed to enter a positive one?
Exactly. Or what if they enter a string instead of a number?
Right, like those unexpected inputs.
Yeah, you got to make sure your code can handle them gracefully.
And what about those boundary conditions?
Oh yeah, those are important too.
Like if you're expecting a number between 1 and 10, test what happens if the user enters 0, 1, 10, and 11.
Exactly. Test those edges.
So it's like we're trying to break our own code.
In a way, yeah, you're trying to find those weaknesses.
Before someone else does.
Exactly. It's like being your own worst critic.
And the cool thing is, by testing thoroughly, we're not just making our code more reliable.
Right.
We're also deepening our understanding of the problem itself.
Yeah, you start to see those nuances, those edge cases.
Yeah, you might have missed otherwise.
Like you're constantly learning.
Exactly. So to wrap up this deep dive into Google coding interviews, we've learned that it's not just about knowing the algorithms or writing fancy code.
It's about so much more.
It's about thinking critically, communicating clearly, adapting to new information, and testing thoroughly.
Exactly. It's about the whole package.
So if you're prepping for a coding interview, remember to focus on the process,
The process.
not just the answer.
Right.
Practice explaining your thought process out loud.
Yeah.
Think about different ways to solve a problem
Uh-huh.
and be prepared to discuss the trade-offs of each approach.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask clarifying questions.
It shows that you're engaged and that you're thinking critically.
And remember, the interviewer is not trying to trick you.
Right.
They're trying to see how you think.
So relax.
Yeah. Be yourself and show them what you're capable of.
And most importantly, have fun with it.
Yes, coding can be challenging, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
It is.
So embrace the challenge, learn from your mistakes, and never stop exploring new ways to solve problems.
Exactly. Keep learning. Keep coding.
And who knows, maybe someday it'll be your coding interview that we're breaking down on the deep dive.
That would be awesome.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Until next time, keep coding and keep learning.
Happy coding.